All right, everybody, welcome back to the first episode of Full Circle after Warmachine Weekend. I am, as always, your host, Chad. Cheddar Caveman on most of the social media I can possibly imagine. Probably some more. So we're going to get back to it. We didn't have an episode last week because I was preparing to go to Warmachine Weekend and had a lot of things on my plate. Had some work to wrap up, had some packing to do, etc., etc. But we went. We picked up Una 2, so that's exciting. Not painted quite yet. We had a Griffin's Roost. Took a bit of a break after a lot of work to get to Warmachine Weekend and on things there. But we'll hopefully have her painted up soon. And maybe I'll try to get sort of a picture later. So today, when we get to it, we're going to spend a little bit of time just on Warmachine Weekend, what went down there, and then from there, we're going to talk about Una 2, and I think we're going to just go ahead and talk about all three of the Griffins. You have to bear with me on those. I don't actually have pictures this time. There was a little bit too much going on with Warmachine Weekend, election stuff, and so forth. So I do want to, I didn't really prepare anything for this, but I do want to take just a moment to share the sad news I heard today. A fellow press ganger and all-around great human, basically, PG Kim, who I actually saw on Saturday, who I learned today has passed away. And I don't want to go too far, but she was great, always willing to go out of her way to help you. She actually, is not somebody who I was terribly close to, but whenever I saw her, she was happy, wanting to hug people, wanting to help people. She went out of her way to get pre-release stuff for me last year when I knew I wouldn't be able to stand in line and didn't have anybody to do it. She offered to pick people up from the airport, to buy them groceries. She ran countless scramblers, and really, she's just going to be missed. And I don't want, I don't feel it appropriate really to even talk about this game without talking briefly about what a great person she was. And if you did know her or want to do anything, her Facebook page, which I don't have a link to, I apologize. I'll try maybe to put it in the show notes on YouTube. But on her Facebook page, there are some links if you would like, if you'd like to do anything to help. But we just wanted to share sort of some of our quick memories of her and some condolences to her friends and family and really everybody in the Warmachine community. It's a really big loss for all of us. Yep. Okay, so now that it was a bit of a somber note, but we will move on. As I was mentioning, so we'll just go over Warmachine Weekend real quick. I played in the Last Chance qualifier. I shared the two lists I was playing in previous episodes, so you can go back and see those. I did not do well in the LCQ. I only ended up playing 2 rounds. I went 0-2. Round 1, just made some mistakes in judgment on what my opponent could get for an assassination, and if it didn't work, which was very close to not working, I think I ended up pretty good on scenario because it was line breaker and I was playing Tanith, so I was able to actually take points off of his flags, which is unusual in that scenario. And then round 2, I got the distinction and honor of being able to play against Dr. Norbert Brunhuber from who now lives in London. He runs the WTC. It was a really fun game. It was a Rusk 2 versus Tanith, and I would say it was even-ish. He was able to get a pretty good lucky drift at the last minute on one of his turns, and that clipped Una and Lanissa, and then led to all sorts of silliness with what happens when a wild beast has to frenzy. which multiple judges had to look over. Anyways, that game I ended up losing on dice down. I was literally the next thing I was going to do was run my feral into the zone to make sure I could contest, and I would have doubled his points because neither of us had control points. Pardon me. And I would have won. Instead, I did not have as many army points remaining as Norbert, and he took the win. And I decided to go ahead and drop, which I was going to play out. I was a little frustrated with time turns and with my play, and I figured get some fresh air, watch a few games, and come back at it later. Day 2, and we'll end up talking more about day 2 because that's when I played Una. Day 2 I played in King of the Hill, which was the tournament I mentioned that Kim was running. I played Una 2 in Wormwood, and I went 4-0, playing Una 3 times, Wormwood 1 time. It was DNC 1. And then we diced off for the finish so that we could get some food. So some good games there. I enjoyed that. And then spent some time basically watching the Invitational. Not a whole lot of Circle in there. I think Brett Fogel and Daniel Yount were playing. I did not see their lists. I think they both lost in the first round. And with that, Jake Van Meter, second place, and congratulations to Chris Davies from Australia. The guy's a machine. He is the only Triple Crown winner to date for Warmachine, having won Lock and Load's Iron Gauntlet Invitational, the WTC, and now the Warmachine Weekend Invitational. And I imagine he's only going to go on to win numerous Australian events. But it was cool that he was able to make it. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, unfortunately. He's got some interesting things to say about Karchev, if you want to check those out on the Privateer Press forums. I don't, again, have a link, but you should be able to find it. But anyways, big congratulations to him, and a lot of great top-end play there. So that brings us to really the more exciting thing to discuss, and that is the release of Una the Skyhunter. Now, obviously, in a previous episode, we did talk briefly about one of the little spoilers of what she did, and we were pretty excited about that, and now we get to see kind of that whole package. So let's just hit all of her stats, and like we normally do. So she's Fury 7, great start. Speed 6, Mat 5, not so great. Rat 6, Defense Armor 15 and 15 boxes. She's Command 8, which is relevant, and does have Pathfinder like basically everything else in Circle does. She has a melee weapon, which has 2-inch range, is Power 9, damage type magical. She has a ranged attack called Wind Strike, which is range 10, rate of fire 1, power 10, and is damage type magical as well. And I'll just jump to the back of her card here. So that gun is also reload 2, so she can buy up to 2 additional attacks. And it has attack types, much like gun mages, for example, do. And those types are Black Penny, which lets the attack ignore the target melee penalty. Snipe, which gives her 4 inches unranged, making the range equal to her control area. And Thunderbolt, which is enemy models hit or push D3 inches directly away from the attacking model, and if she manages to critically hit, the enemy model would become knocked down after being pushed. She has 29 Warbeast points. And then other than her gun, she has 2 rules on the back. We talked about Birds of Prey last episode, but pardon me, but just to go over it real quick, while in her control range, Griffin Warbeasts in her battle group gain flank with another Griffin in her battle group, and flank is the model that is benefiting from it gets +2 to attack rolls and an additional die on damage. So it kind of makes you a more accurate weapon master, but you've got to commit a little bit more to the target. And then the other rule on the back of her card is called Hawker, which is while in her command range, which is 8 inches, Warbeasts in her battle group with flight gain sprint. We all know what sprint is from a handful of things that have it, and obviously from Mark II. But if you destroy or remove from play an enemy model with melee attack, after its activation, it can make a full advance. Now to move on to the juicy bits. Her spell list includes Hand of Fate, which costs 2, is range 6. It's an upkeep, not offensive. Target friendly faction model / unit gains an additional die on attack and damage rolls. Discard the low die in each roll. She has Mirage. Again, costs 2, range 6, upkeep. Target friendly faction model / unit gains Apparition, which is during control phase, any of the affected models can be placed completely within 2 inches. She has Twister, a cost 2, range 10, AoE 3, POW 10 offensive spell, and it leaves a cloud effect in play that remains for 1 round. And then she has Windwall, a cost 3, range self, lasts for a round. The spellcaster cannot make ranged attacks after casting the spell, and non-magical ranged attacks targeting it automatically miss. While completely within 3 inches of the spellcaster, models cannot make ranged attacks, and non-magical ranged attacks targeting them automatically miss. And as I said, lasts for 1 round. And finally, her feat, From on High. Friendly faction models with flight currently in her control range gain +2 speed for 1 turn. Additionally, while in her control range, friendly faction light warbies with flight cannot be targeted by melee attacks. From on High lasts for 1 round. Okay, so that is kind of a lot of stuff. I personally am very excited about this. She definitely... so the one thing not on her card that we were sort of waiting to hear about is whether or not she would be restricted to flying beasts or just buff them, and it turns out it's the latter. You can take heavy, other heavy war beasts that we have. You can take our other light war beasts, which is important because I think the light griffins really benefit from primal. So a Gorax or possibly Feral, depending on how you want to build her list, makes a lot of sense. As might a Pureblood, potentially, for Wraithbane. She has a fantastic spell list. Mirage is alright. It's not as good as Telekinesis for a single target, but it's much better theoretically than Telekinesis for a unit as far as threat range. It doesn't do a lot of the other utility things that Telekinesis does, of course, but it can increase threat range. Hand of Fate is such a good spell. It sort of maths out to being in the range of +2 to both attack and damage rolls, sort of depending on where in the curve you're needing to hit. But it's both an accuracy and a damage buff. It's not like a just straight additional die, so it's not. I wouldn't call it over the top, but it is one of the strongest buff spells in the game as far as attacking goes. And it applies to ranged or melee attacks, which is really strong, and overall just a fantastic spell. Twister's just sort of whatever. I don't think it's not going to be a huge spell, but when you need it, it will be there and it will do some huge things. The fact that it leaves a cloud in our faction is super strong. You can turn on Prowl on any number of things that we have without having terrain on the table already or some other thing that gets you a forest. And Windwall is pretty fantastic. There are not a ton of magic weapons in the game that are guns. And furthermore, the number of things people are playing that bring the ability to make things magical weapons is diminished. So Arlen's Strange Ways exists, but he only applies to Warjacks and only in Signar. Aeon on Holt do it, but we've seen a huge downtick in their play because Harm is friendly faction now. And then after that, Circle has like the Tharn Ravager Shaman, and the Retribution just has magic guns. Somebody like Kane and Kara Sloan have magic guns. So there are things for sure, but you can definitely do things like that. Like you put it on her, surround her with Griffins, or Griffins are, even without stealth, are safe, and not all of the Griffins have stealth, so that's important. You can put Sentry Stones inside of it, and they drop their forest down, and then you're sort of behind that, and you can keep them additionally safe, and things like super strong spell, and it keeps her safe. It means she can play up the field a little farther than she may otherwise not want to, which is good. Although at Fury 7, she can stay back, and Long Leash on the Scarsfell Griffin, which we'll get to, also does allow her to stay back. One thing that sort of that I'm not too sure about is I was really hoping that she did a lot for the Storm Raptor, and I think she does a fair amount ish with Hand of Fate and with her feet, or the first half of her feet. Speed 9 Storm Raptor is nothing to snuff, nothing to be upset about. Hand of Fate, as I mentioned, fantastic. Takes that Mat 5 and makes it a little less of an issue. Also turns the gun into a pretty fantastic shot at Rat 6, possibly Rat 8, depending on how far away. And an additional die, basically, to confirm a hit. And then that applies to, I believe, pardon me, I believe that applies to the Electro Leap, or the Lightning Generator bounces that Storm Raptor has. But overall, it's looking like really her strongest play is going to be bringing a lot of Griffins. Because they benefit from everything in her card. You can put Hand of Fate on one, you can put Mirage on one, they can sprint, they can't be targeted by melee attacks on the approach, or during the feat in melee. So that's huge. Some of you who recall Saren from Mark II, it's her feat, only very selectively for the Griffins. But it gives a bonus 2+2 speed. Of note, it does say models with flight get +2 speed. So should we get any sort of flying unit, which we currently don't have, it would apply to them. So maybe something down the road, maybe not. Maybe they just want to be generic because it makes sense with her. I don't know. I would love to see some more flying models in our faction to go with her. I really, really love all the Griffin models. I love the Storm Raptor model, and I would certainly love to see some more of that. Beast Pack, perhaps, and so forth. Yeah. And the other thing to note that I was able to take some advantage of, and to a degree, we're probably going to come back, probably not like next week, but probably in a few weeks, and we're really going to talk more about what sort of lists I'm playing with her and which way to go. Like I mentioned, I think Brett Fogel was playing a list. I'm sure he'll be discussing it on his podcast soon. But he sort of had more of a ex-Scarsfell Griffins and some other support pieces like Wrong Eye Snapjaw, Pure Blood, Gorax, and so forth. The build I played, just to throw it out there, and frankly, this was largely because it's what I had / remembered to bring, and what was on my tray, because day 2 I wasn't taking it super seriously, was Una, a Druid Wilder, 5 Scarsfell Griffins, 2 Rotterhorn Griffins, and 3 Razerwing Griffons, which is most of the Griffins I owned. I made sure to bring them. I added a Gorax, and then I had 2 Shifting Stones, 2 Sentry Stones, and Swamp Gobbers. And the Swamp Gobbers were literally because they were the 2-point thing that was on my tray, and I had 2 points left over. A lot of people are like, oh, you only want Scarsfells with them because they have all the attacks and they have Long Leash and blah blah blah, better Animus, and I think they're great. I think a certain number of them with her is ideal. I think if you're not backing those up with heavies, and I'll get to why I didn't, then you are gonna need other stuff in the list, because they do have a decent number of attacks, but they're still not going to do any work against lightly armored or heavily armored infantry. Their stealth is great, but you can protect the other ones with wind walls, I had mentioned, or just distance in this case. And the tramples, and so like you get a 12.5-inch trample out of a Razorwing. That's pretty substantial, and wherever it lands, it's not going to be incurring melee, or it's not going to get any melee attacks, no free strikes, which doesn't get one of tramples anyways, but good to know. And so forth. The one thing I really had wished I could find room for was either like Lanissa Rissel or Blackcloud Wayfarers, because Hunter's Mark giving you more threat seemed strong. And I was actually able to take a lot of advantage of her gun. The Thunderbolt shot and being able to make multiple of them was a really strong scenario play. I played a game against Severius 2, and they can't acquire the jacks to stop it from happening. And to score my middle flag, I actually had the Griffin that was by one of his jacks kill the only model that was behind it, and Una aim shot it, pushed it back an inch, allowing me to get some points in, and that was an incursion. So really strong there. Obviously being able to shoot in a melee to clear some guys off of Griffins, or being able to snipe was big. I used that to shoot across the zone to kill a sentry stone that wasn't stealth. And that's one of the reasons why you won't see a ton of Twister use. It's probably, you're almost always going to be better off just buying those attacks. I mean, Fury 7 versus Rat 6, but you can aim sometimes, and you're still, even if you have to boost a hit, like if you had to boost a hit on a 6, the odds are you're pretty close to having to boost on the 7 anyways. So for the same 3, I have a boosted POW 10 instead of a not boosted POW 12, unless I need the cloud. Probably going with the gun. So super strong there. You don't want her in melee. She's mat 5. She's squishy as hell. You don't want that. If that's the direction things are going, then it's probably not in your favor. I did not get the sprint rule to come off, but I only played a couple games. There was definitely one of the games where I could have, but I instead had an assassination option, and I took it, and it was successful. I don't know. I think it's the rule that you're going to have to be sure you're being very careful of, because if you don't, and you're like, oh, I really want to get this sprint off, and you move Una forward, you might get her dead. So really think about, do I need to be able to sprint away here? Is it important? If you can, do it, right? Like you may be able to go deeper, you may be able to go back. Sprint is never to be dismissed, but do keep that in mind. And then as far as our list, we're going to start talking about the Griffins here in a moment and going through all of them. But I think that there's probably a few ways to build her, but you're definitely going to want, I don't think any less than 5 light Griffins with her of at least some variety. I right now recommend Scarsfells, or at least some of them be Scarsfells, just because they're the ones that are going to hit the hardest. But there's flexibility after that. And as I'm testing, I will report back. I'll let you know. And we'll see about that. So, but let's go ahead and talk about the Griffins, and we'll probably just kind of go. Let's just go through this alphabetically. So we will start with the Razerwing Griffon, and again, apologies for not having the card here, but so the Razerwing Griffon is speed 7, strength 8, mat 6, rat irrelevant, defense 15, armor 14, command 3, and has flight, obviously, wings. It has 2 claw blades, which are open fists that are half-inch melee range, and POW 11. It is Fury 3, threshold 8, and point cost 7. And I believe they have 22 boxes, which are more or less evenly split. Looks like 1 extra in the mind. On the back of its card, it has a couple rules. It has trample power attack, so it can make trample power attacks. Works the same as if a heavy were going to do it. You pay 1, go in a direction. It has Blade Rush, which is while making a trample power attack, the model ignores free strikes and does not stop when it contacts a model with a medium or larger, so it will go through a colossal base, an obstacle or an obstruction. The model makes trample attacks against those models regardless of their base size. And it has Threshing Blades, which is this model gains +4 to its trample power attack damage rolls, making them POW 12 tramples. And its animus is Amok. When target friendly faction war beast makes a power attack or special attack, the attack rolls are boosted. It lasts for 1 turn. So it can use that on itself. You get boosted Mat 6 tramples at POW 12. Pretty good. I had 3 of these in the list, largely because I owned, at the time, 3 of them. And that's what I put in my bag. So I found a couple things. So first to talk about them with Una, and then we'll talk a little more in general. With Una, what I felt like was POW 12s are enough to do, POW 12 tramples are going to definitely be enough to do some solid work into any sort of infantry, especially if you can get the position right. And I was right. One game, it definitely mattered. I was able to kill 4 or 5 troopers, trampled over them, found a landing space, boosted attack rolls, POW 12s killed. I think I failed to kill 1 because of a bad dice roll, but perfect way to get a bunch. And the other thing with them is they still have 2 POW 11s, which it's first of all, it's 1 less power total than the Scarsfell, and it's also 1 less attack, so they're not hitting as hard. I mean, that's obvious. They are slightly cheaper, but really the advantage is the first thing you put on something when you want to flank isn't going to get the benefit of flank anyways. So he might be able to trample to where he's going to go, get some infantry dead, get in melee with the thing that you want to do work into, and now you can send one of your other Griffins or something else in and get some work done there. So that was kind of why I included them there. As far as them in any other list, what I sort of struggle with is I do feel like they're strong, or at least decent, but tramples are tricky, and for 2 reasons. One, they can kind of take up a more of your clock than you would expect, because you've got to sort of finick with putting down the base and then getting your laser out and seeing what you go over and probably fidgeting with it a little bit, and then you do your thing, and hopefully you get a bunch of them. So that's sort of one thing. The other thing is your opponent may just not give you decent tramples, especially 7 inches is pretty far. You go 10 when you trample. It's decent. It's definitely, I felt like I played them a little bit in Mark II, and they hit a little harder in melee then, so that sort of changes things. But they also were just a little slow, and I had a hard time finding landing space for that nearly 1.5 inch medium base, a 40mm base. So now 1 more inch of movement, you're going to be able to do that easier. Obviously on the feet, you're going to get 2 more inches on top of that, which is great. Mirage on one of these might be strong. I didn't try it. I had it on Una most of the time, which I don't know that that's the right play either. But with Mirage, you may be able to sort of get where you can, like, Mirage to sort of a sideways angle to give yourself a better trample. So definitely something to consider there. Hand of Fate on those tramples is also going to be strong if you need the additional damage, and possibly even additional hitting on top of a muck. And just in general, it's a decent beast. For 7 points, I think you're getting a decent beast. It doesn't have stealth to protect. It does have 1 more armor over the Scarsfell, so that's great. It has the same armor as the Rotterhorn. So with Una, I like it. With some of the other casters, I'm a little less sure of it. Flight's obviously strong. Speed 7's strong. Mat 6 is decent, and Power 11's kind of average for a light. So at some point, I would like to try with some other casters. What I really feel like it wants, though, is that speed buff, and there's not a whole lot of places we get it anymore. The Gnarlhorn, its old animus, was great, so if we get that back, I'll be pretty excited for it. And if we start seeing more infantry and a caster that really wants to play beasts, it might, or especially light beasts. So Una is like the perfect package for it, but the rest of the casters, it's harder to say. I think Chromac 2 is an interesting home for it, especially since you can get stronger tramples, and he's just great with any living beast. Kaya 1 is very interesting as the ability to like have it trample out and then spirit draw it back is strong. And off the top of my head, Chromac 1 and Grail 1, I guess just Grail, both sort of honorable mentions. Is again, they can kind of, with Warpath or with Grail's Feet, you can, again, the same thing I talked about with Mirage, which Mosar has as well. You can kind of like move sort of in a way to line, you know, get that out of activation movement to line up your tramples or get deeper for your tramples. So those are the sort of things I would look to be abusing with it. I wouldn't say that it's the first Griffin I'd reach for. We will get to that eventually. But if you need Griffins to do work, again, to sort of do hybrid work, right, you could send it on a light. You could ding up a heavy a little bit. And you can do work trampling sort of the medium-ish range of infantry. It's going to be good for you. So that's about all I have on the Razerwing. More to come on that, hopefully, when I've played a little bit more Una. I think that's where you'll probably hear me talking about them. But you know, we'll see what else is released soon. So from there, let's go to the next R Griffin, which is the Rotterhorn Griffin. I'm going to go a little quicker through this one, but its stat line is 100% identical to the last beast. Speed 7, Mat 6, Def 15, Armor 14, Flight 2, POW 11, Open Fists that are half-inch melee, Fury 3, Threshold 8, 22 boxes. Still 7 points even. What is different about it is enemy models currently within 2 inches of the spellcaster suffer an unboostable POW 8, and once per activation, immediately after resolving a melee attack in which it destroyed an enemy model, it can cast its Animus without being forced. One moment, we're going to pause while I and take a slight, very slight break while I attend to my little Warpwolf who's causing a bunch of trouble. So, one moment, please. Alright, and we're back. Those of you who are joining with the video, hopefully I'll be able to splice that together and you'll just get one continuous video with this weird pause thing that looks like nothing happened except this conversation. And for those of you who are listening via the stream, hopefully I didn't lose too many of you. Had to, unfortunately, my producer's not here to keep the cute Warpwolf at bay. So, anyways, we were talking about the Rotterhorn Griffin. So it again is another 7-point option. It's again a little bit of a specific role. So with Una, the reason I brought it there was much the same as the reason why I brought the Razerwing. One, I owned them. I played 2 of them in Mark II, like most people. And 2, they bring a little bit of something else to the equation. That they have probably a much easier time killing very lightly armored things. So POW 8's not anything to write home about on the Death Shriek, but it is enough to kill. So things that are armor, say defense 14, 15, and armor 11, it's going to do fine there because it's you only need like 4s to kill them. Really anything up to POW 8, like armor 13, you're sort of minimizing the amount of benefit you're going to get there, because at armor 13 you're needing 6s to kill. Maybe armor 4. Wait, make sure I said that correctly. Yeah, 6s to kill. Armor 14, 7s to kill. You're starting to lose effectiveness as you kind of get past 13. 14 is still doable, and any more than that, I wouldn't count on it. I do like, to a degree, I like the change here. I mean, I really miss the old Animus letting me do the tricks with like the Black Cloud and whatnot. And you can see plenty of, if you look at old Mark II stuff, you can see how that worked if you didn't do it. But I do like how it's built. 7 points is pretty cheap for a light. It's not 6 is the cheapest in Circle, and I think 5 is the cheapest I've seen, but still decently cheap, especially for something with flight, speed 7, and now it's gonna, if its purpose there is to get those lightly armored infantry models dead, it absolutely is able to fulfill that role, and better, really, because now you can go in, You can charge easily, kill one model, shriek for free, or if you can't kill the model, you can spend the 2 fury to do it. So a lot of options there. And I think again with Una, you have 2 things going on. 1, the longer threat range, obviously helpful. 2, and not being able to target my melee attacks. 2, the fact that it's a Griffin and it's doing something for your list is big, because again, you feat, it can fly into position, it can charge into position, and yeah, it's not going to do a lot of work, but you can sort of set up that flank with whatever the next thing is you need if you don't have a better use for, like, if you don't have infantry you need to kill or whatnot. And I didn't mention this with the Razerwing, but I think true of both, that if you can get primal on it and flank on their Warcaster, it's probably going to be enough, or get you to where you need to do enough work into them. It should do fine against like light beasts and jacks and so forth. So that's why I included it there. Again, going back to talking about other lists, I feel like you need a specific reason for it, right? It's not as defensive as some of the other options we have, and you're really talking about killing lightly armored troops. So a lot of times our warlocks are just doing that for us. We also have like a unit of Reeves, which is more than double the number of points as these, but they can also kill a lot more. They're range 12 and spread out, and we'll talk about them in another episode. But they have POW 8s. The fact that you can't boost the POW 8s, we used to be able to boost them, is a little bit of a hit, because anything with wounds and lower armor, you can boost to make sure you kill like a command attachment or a solo that got too cheeky and so forth. But this is the change that we saw. I think it's still fine. I think 7 points is a good cost for it. I think again with Una, you can keep it safe inside of Windwall if you need to. There's still defense 15, armor 14, great stat line, and speed 7 is fantastic. You're not going to get much better than Mat 6 outside of characters. We do have one Mat 7 in our faction that isn't, but that's not terribly common. Not on the Horde side anyways. And all around just a good beast. I don't know, again, what other casters I would look into it with. I think anything that increases its threat range is something to consider. So Kaya 2, Chromac 1, possibly Grail, although he probably has other answers to infantry in his list. Mirage is decent on it, so I guess situationally you could do with like a Mosar, maybe Kruger 2. TK is good on everything. The high defense of Kruger 1 makes it interesting, but he probably doesn't need a whole lot of help killing lightly armored things. He's got lots of POW 10s in his list. And again, Kaya 1 with Spirit Door is always interesting, and Kaya 2 does a similar thing with her feet. It's always interesting to go in there, kill some stuff, and get back. So, I have not played them previous to Una. I didn't get a lot of use out of those POW 8s with Una, although I did feel like there was a list, a Retribution list with a lot of Mage Hunters, where I really did consider just feeding and putting them into his strike force, killing a bunch of guys, and then being in a good position. But it was because of how he played it, I was able just to kill him, so I did that. We'll see again where they end up going. I plan to be testing them with Una. I don't know that I'm really planning to test them in a lot of other places. If I did, I'd still likely consider them on Una 1, as she can deal with her fury and such. And of course, one of the things I do like is they deal with infantry, but they're a little more flexible. So a couple POW 11s, primal up to 13s if you have primal on your list, which you usually have primal on your list, and any other buffs, and you got a pretty decent amount of work you can do there. Right now, probably just looking at them with Una, but we'll see. All right. And then that will bring us to the final Griffin. Some may say the best Griffin. And that is the Scarsfell Griffin. So for those of you who played Mark II, this is quite a reversal. Right now I feel like the Rotterhorn is probably the weakest of them, just because of the sort of list compositions people are playing. But and the Scarsfell in Mark II is probably the weakest, and now they've sort of reversed, with more light and heavy war beasts and warjacks being the thing of the day. So it is speed 7, mat 6, still strength 8, Defense 15, armor 13. So important note here, the other two are 14s. This one is a 13. And the reason being, it has flight as well, is that, I assume, the reason being anyways, is that it has stealth, native stealth. Still Fury 3, still Threshold 8, still has 2 half-inch POW 11 open fist, but also has a POW 12 half-inch beak attack. Still has 22 boxes. This point cost 8. And it has long leash, which doubles the control range when seeing if you're in the caster's control area, or control range, sorry. And tracker, which is this model ignores force when determining line of sight when declaring a charge. Very, very critical sort of piece there. And its animus is elusive. It costs 1 ranged self that gives dodge, and dodges if an enemy attack misses it anytime except while it's advancing. It can immediately move 2 inches, ignoring free strikes. So at defense 15, that's really good. This guy has sort of been like the biggest deal for Circle that wasn't obvious, at least initially coming into Mark III. Having 3 initials, if we can, and stealth, speed 7, and the animus, the long leash, and tracker all sort of add up to this beast that you can't hide from very well, that hits above its pay grade-ish when we consider the cost of some of the heavies in Warmachine. That's maybe being a bit generous, but it does hit above its pay grade. It's more so than most of the things in Circle. It's survivable with native stealth and high defense. If an attack connects with it, though, do not be surprised. I've had them die in 2 hits. I'm pretty sure I've had one-shotted. Armor 13 is bad, so you're relying on those other aspects of it to sort of win the day for you. But it's fast, and when it gets there, we have more than a few things that help boost its ability to hit you. So flank on Una, obviously. Primal, strong. Hand of Fate on Una, strong. On Tanith, which is where I was playing a lot of them, as you may recall from my other episodes, I had 5. And their Scything Touch was strong. I think Curse of Shadows from Wormwood or Mozart has a lot of potential for the same reason. You can put Force Evolution on it on Kai 2, and all of a sudden it's defense 17, and it again goes up by 2. So that's a giant pain for anybody to deal with. I don't think you'd play him with Balder to put Stone Skin on them, because you lose the advantage of their speed, but you could. I think Chromac 2, his feet is very strong for them, giving them +2 strength and armor. And already being fast is great. Chromac 1 is not a bad place for them. Another 3 inches on that long threat range is always going to be good. Or being able to come 3 inches back if that's the right answer, or even deeper in some cases, just to jam in there. This beast is fantastic, to the point of it being terrifying to non-Circle players right now. I feel like it's what do I want to say? I feel like it's our way of being able to actually make some decent trades. So you're not going to kill. Well, I've done it by super hot dice, but for the most part, one of them is not killing a real heavy. Sometimes 2 of them is going to struggle to do so if your dice kind of decide to give you the finger. But in somebody like a Tanith or an Una, or Una 2 rather, you are going to be able to put maybe 2 of these on a target and kill it. Now that's 16 points. We're getting close to the range that people are trading, and you have 2 things you have to kill back, which is big, right? Very big. Pardon me. And that's really where its strength lies, in my opinion, is its ability to go into heavies, do half to 2/3 of its boxes, or maybe more if you're lucky, send in another one, or send in another target, or sorry, send in another attacker and take it down. They're hard to stop on the approach. They are hard to deal with in melee because they're defense 15. You're probably boosting to hit, and if you're not, you're probably gonna, well, knowing my luck, you'll just get lucky and hit anyways, but unlikely mathematically. And the other thing is Long Leash makes them amazing with Tanith to be a channeling piece, since they can go 2 feet is a huge control area. I mean, that's bigger than Harbingers, and we can play up the table usually a little farther. Super strong. Una 1, they're great on Una 1 because her 8-inch control area becoming 16 makes her basically, I mean, that's more than her full form gets when with other beasts. So you can put them kind of anywhere on the table. They have stealth, they are fast, they have a great animus, and then they have tracker. And the thing with tracker is it pretty much means if you have a list that is prominently featuring these in it, that your opponent is not playing Wormwood into you. It's not happening. They can't do it because you can see through the forest, and that means either you're taking out their pieces, like their heavies, or you're killing Wormwood. So not going to see that. A few of the other lists out there that rely on forest or rely on terrain, doesn't do it. And it lets you pick more advantageous terrain, because again, like if there's a forest in a position, a lot of times you're like, I can't charge through that, and I don't. These guys don't care. Just charge right through. It's great. Important note: they ignore forest for line of sight, not clouds. So it's a little nuance there. If you're playing against them, clouds work. If you're playing them, clouds work. So make sure you don't have that problem. So, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to add with the Scarsfell Griffin. Right now, I've played them with Chromac 2. I've played them with Tanith. I've played them with Una 2. I have theorized them with Wormwood, Kruger 1. That might be about it. I think I played them with a Balder 1 list, also sort of as outside flankers. That was a list I stole from somebody at the WTC. It didn't really, I may try it again, but it wasn't really my thing. They also have the distinction of being sold out almost everywhere right now. So as much as I'm hyping them up, good luck finding them. It'd be fun if I come back and listen to this in down the road to see if they're still hard to find or if they're still as popular. But right now they're so good that I've heard rumblings of people feeling like they're in the top 5% that we need to sort of tone down in Circle. I don't really think so. I think there are arguments that could be made. I would like to see them sort of flesh out a little bit of difference between the Rotterhorn and the Razerwing than really affecting it. Not exactly sure what they would do there. I think in Mark 2 the Razerwing had 3 POW 12 initials. And that was strong enough that I liked it with Chromac 2 when I played it. And now they have 2 POW 11s, and then the tramples are POW 12s. But with those claws on the bladed claws, it was surprising to me that they didn't have a higher POW by 1 than the other Griffins do on their claws. So that was a little odd to me, sort of thematics to rules wise. I'm sure they had the reason, but making those maybe POW 12s would sort of differentiate. That would make the Razerwing a little bit more desirable in some places, and you could sort of play with the point cost, and I don't think it would be the end of the world. And a few other things. So we'll see. I really hope that they don't change it, because I think Circle sort of deserves to have a piece that's able to do some decent trading, but we'll see. I'm not going to worry about it until January. Sort of one of the things I want to do is rather than complain about how it should be, or how it, what's wrong and what should change and what I'd love to see. And I may talk a little bit about some of those, but is sticking sort of with the positive. We're going to play stuff. We're going to play games. We're going to see what is doing well, what isn't, and how it plays into the tournament games or into your friendly games. Just because I think the rest is sort of worthless. We can complain forever, but the game's only going to change at most once every or twice a year. probably in a big way only once a year. And it doesn't do any good to be like, oh, well, this is too good or this is too bad. Like, we just need to play the games and see what nuances and what strategies work and which ones don't, and base it off of that. And that's kind of how I'm I know I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but that's sort of how I'm planning to structure this show. So, just to throw that out there, that's sort of where I'm at. So that's Una and all 3 Griffins. I'd be real excited if they decide to release another one, or another flying anything, really, as I was mentioning. We didn't talk a lot about it, but I don't really have a lot of advice right now on what she would want that is not a Griffin. Sentry Stones are really good, so I'd say they're an option. I would say, barring them, that something like Mist Riders might be interesting, or Druids, to add some line of sight blocking. I don't think that Swamp Gobbers were necessary at all. I do think like Black Clouds and Linus, as I mentioned, would be solid. I think an argument for like a Hut Shock could be interesting. Rust Bomb, but I don't know that you need more damage helping. We'll see. And the number of Goraxes in the list could vary too. So in any case, that's kind of what I had planned for this episode. I didn't see any questions come in since the last couple weeks, which is fine. If you do have any, feel free, of course, to hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, any social media you can find my name on, and I'll try to remember them. We'll talk about them. And so that's Una. We'll come back to Una here a few weeks down the road, maybe after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, before Circle Christmas. And see how she's doing, how I feel like she does, what lists she, sort of like what you need to look into or what builds. I'm planning to play more Griffin heavy builds, but we'll see. In any case, one quick show note. As always, I'd like to thank Griffin's Roost Painting for painting my models and as a sponsor of the show. They do fantastic work. Check them out on Facebook at Griffin's Roost Painting or griffinsroostpainting.com. And next week we'll have some more circle discussion. We got plenty to get through still. And until then, thank you for listening. Bye.